So welcome back to Bible study. We are looking at the Bible readings for Lent, the fourth Sunday of Lent, which is 1 Samuel 16, 1 through 13, Psalm 23, Ephesians chapter 5, 8 through 14, and John chapter 9, actually the whole chapter, and maybe a little bit of chapter 10. So that's not the official reading, but we may touch on that. But let's go ahead and begin with our prayer. Gracious Lord, bend your ear to our prayers and come among us. By your gracious life and death for us, bring light into the darkness of our hearts and anoint us with your Spirit. For you live and reign with the Father and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. Okay, so most of the time, I like to go in the order of the readings as we hear them, in a church service, which would be the Old Testament, the Psalm, the New Testament, and the Gospel. And but our reading is really, really big, and it's a great story. So we're going to go ahead and focus on John, and then either just reference some of the other Bible passages. But if it turns out like, hey, we still got time, we'll maybe go back to them a little more. But for the most part today, we'll just keep ourselves on this one passage. So, and I will say this about John's gospel: there's layers. There are just, you can delve into it and then still go back later and be like, oh my gosh, there's another layer or another reference or another way it weaves in that I didn't even understand or notice the first time through and the second time through and whatever. So, and then when we bring it into our own life experience, there's always going to be new, some different insights and perspectives and things like that. So I made our own little cheat sheet of all the reading. See, 2 sides. And I broke it up so that way we could take turns with some of the reading. So it's basically the paragraphs that I made would be what I'll suggest that we'll, as we take turns, you can read it. We'll read by. I'm sorry. I tried to go around and I missed. You weren't sitting there at the second. I apologize. Thank you. Okay, so this time I'll let John start. And he's going to do the chapter 9 of John's Gospel, 1 through 12. That's what we'll start with. Okay. 1 through it's like the paragraph.
Yeah, it's 12. Okay.
A man born blind received sight. As he walked along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" Jesus answered, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's work might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me. While it is day, night is coming. Then no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world." When he had said this, he spat on the ground and made mud with saliva and spread the mud on the man's eyes, saying to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. Then he went and washed and came back able to see. The neighbors and those who had seen him before as a beggar began to ask, "Is this not the man who used to sit and beg?" Some were saying, "It is he." Others were saying, "No, but it is someone like him." He kept saying, "I am he." But they kept asking him, "Then how were your eyes opened?" He answered, "The man called Jesus made mud, spread it on my eyes, and said to me, 'Go to Siloam and wash.' Then I went and washed and received my sight." They said to him, "Where is he?" He said, "I do not know."
Okay, thank you. So this is, when I think about the readings together that we had over the weekend, I kind of had like seeing, being seen, living in the light. That would be kind of like, so vision or seeing or being seen and recognized kind of was something that was between the different readings. But then there's another angle, because then we get Psalm 23, and it's on the shepherd. But we'll see how that does connect. It does connect. But so, again, with that thought in mind, seeing, being seen, I had not, until I was reviewing some of my other notes, even since this last weekend in worship, I had, just as he was reading, as he, Jesus, walked along, he saw. Jesus sees this person, this man, before this man is not even aware of Jesus being present. And Jesus is the one who sees him. And I think that's a lot of what is, it is, I would say, kind of something of a theme also in the Gospel of John, is how Jesus sees, who he notices, and how he, like with the woman I think of this and the woman of Samaria having some things in common, because both of them, the man who was born with blindness and the woman of Samaria, are the kind of people that most people wouldn't see. I mean, they might literally have physically passed through their vision range, but they would not take notice.
Well, a lot of times you look at something and you really don't see it.
Yeah, so they
go back and you say, did I really miss that?
Mm-hmm. So, but whereas, again, like the woman of Samaria, this is a man who most people would have not even, registered with, would have, got their attention in any way. And right away, this starts out with Jesus sees him. And that kind of connects with, again, in life, where people who have perhaps various disabilities are often not seen, again, not in the most actual sense, but noticed, paid attention to, regarded as, worth giving your time to. And that's an unfortunate commentary on us as human beings, on us as a society, that it's so easy to just disregard people who have, Susie was in a specialized chair that was amazing because it lifted her so she could be more on par with where, standing people might be.
Oh, she loved going into a place and then ask for the high table.
Yeah.
And then raise up.
Because they was probably looking at her and thinking why would she want a high table?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. I like
She
that.
wants to hide under it. Kay's wife, Susie.
In my Bible, there's a slightly different
Kay's wife, Susie.
reading as far as the mud is concerned. It says, he spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva, and he anointed the eyes of the blind.
Oh, I like the wording anointing. Interesting.
And then it says in the notes, mixing clay with saliva was a common practice used for eye infections. Jesus may have used the clay to provide an opportunity for the man to exercise his faith in washing it off. It hadn't worked before.
No. Well, so get to that step in the. Well, before we get to that step of the story, the healing part, let's talk the commentary, though, the assumption part that comes before the healing part, which is, and it's, the disciples voice this, but again, they're just voicing what was a general assumption in society. This was, a broad perspective, and is the question, or what they raise up is, Rabbi, to Jesus, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And that was, again, a very strong perspective that, carried through from the Old Testament times. And just as an example, let's see, just real quick, a little example of where that kind of perspective could be traced to would be, for instance, Proverbs 13, verse 21. Misfortune pursues sinners, but prosperity rewards the righteous. Now, Proverbs is very, that's the way Proverbs talks.
Well, the Old Testament It's in Exodus, where it says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you.
Yeah.
So to the third or fourth generation.
Yeah, that like the sins of the parents could pass, like the effect of that could be to generation to generation. Yeah.
In Job, they kind of turned it on its head a little bit.
Job starts to question. That's what the book of Job is doing. It's questioning that assumption, right? Yeah. So, but that still was a big assumption, even
Israel collectively got punished too for things. So that was it's all the way through the Bible.
Yeah. So it wasn't just a perspective that's an individual life experience. It would be like that was a way of understanding why were they conquered by the Babylonians or this or that. It was because you turned away from God and you were also oppressing people. You were doing wrong.
Raid us regularly. They were used to that.
I suspect other cultures also had similar. Just because
there's
you
a
have
thing
to
called.
It's like, why did I have two babies and one is perfect and one is not?
Well, and there's what is it more the Eastern or is it Hindu karma, right? The concept of karma, which is you do put out bad in the world, you get bad coming back at you. So I mean there is a general way in life. And so that's the thing. There's an element of truth in it. I mean even the karma idea, you do bad stuff, I would say the odds go up that now some bad stuff may happen to you because I just think the odds go up.
And like less than 50 years ago, a bestseller was When Bad Things Happen to Good People.
Yeah.
But part of it has to be, is this a bad thing? Because he is different, does that make him bad?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's what I think of as, okay, I can understand that sin very often, not 100%, but very often is going to lead to some bad outcomes. There's going to be consequences, or other people got hurt, or ourselves got hurt, or even by sinning against God that we're breaking that relationship with God. So these are not good things. So sin can lead to definitely not good things. On the other hand, the not good things in our life don't have to automatically have come because of sin. And that's where the first part of it makes a lot of sense. It's the reversal of the order that is like, that's not necessarily true. And the book of Job is asking that in a big way. He loses immensely.
In smaller communities, I mean, everybody knows everybody's business. Well, that family, but they always were any good.
Well, yeah, and then it becomes like a stereotype that carries and lasts.
The kids have to move away because they can't even.
Yeah, which is unfortunate. And then the sins of the parents thing, passing on to generation after generation. I mean, in modern way of thinking, the way I kind of look on that is, like we know nowadays something like alcoholism doesn't affect just the individual with it. It affects the children, and it can then even affect the children of those. So there's ways in which things that have gone wrong do sometimes have multiple.
Like domestic violence and other things like that. There's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
They learn a behavior.
Right.
So I think of it as a reflection of that, not necessarily so much that God's going to punish the next and the next. It's more like, no, the bad consequences of some things can carry from one generation to the next.
People can break that cycle.
And it can be broken.
Cycle
Yeah.
of poverty, cycle of addiction,
Yeah.
cycle of abuse.
Yeah. And that, right. And I like that we're not, because otherwise the other perspective is, well, like kind of what Sandra was just saying. It's like, well, we're doomed. Our family has always had bad luck or bad events or,
God gave us free will.
So and God gives free will.
Opportunity if you've fallen far enough,
family, they never got.
Yeah.
Naive to assume that our parents had no effect on how we enter the world and how we start out. So there are people that are born into privilege and they can still be blind.
Yeah.
Or they can, claw their way out of poverty or whatever. But it's,
Nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some things of which do definitely give us certain effects, especially, the first parts of our life. But then again, I appreciate the reminder that God has given free will and there's opportunities for things to change. And
Well, I felt that very keenly in my own life because I was the first adopted child of that family, my father's family. My mother's too, I guess. But my father's family on that, my grandfather, they would have nothing to do with me.
Yeah, because this notion that unless you are literally born of the blood of the...
So I was brought up with, well, you're going to show them.
Yeah, that would kind of add to the determination level. I could see that.
My sister came along, they were kind of used to the idea, and she was one of these cute little blonde kids, she was their little darling.
Well, so now we've touched on the assumption thing about blaming the parent or the man himself for this, and Jesus' point being. Just so you know, okay, this is getting really tricky, but according to the experts who know their Greek super well, the phrase "he was born blind" is literally not in the Greek. It's just more like neither this man nor his parents sinned. God's work might be revealed in him. I mean, that just literally. But so the phrase that he was born blind, that is an addition. So. Anyway, so we really just jumped to God's work might be revealed in him. So, I think what it opens up the door for is, there's a lot of different variety of reasons why someone might have an ailment. And it could have had, in our day and age, I hate to say it, but if a mother drinks ragingly lots of alcohol or something, it might affect the child's sight. It might have repercussions. The child might be born very premature, and
babies.
Yeah, So I mean, it can, but it doesn't. But it might not be that at all, right? So
wasn't I go back in my memory and you'd probably know, Sandra, but before they started, was it silver iodide? They put
the drops.
Drops because
silver iodide.
Because they
put the
blind.
baby's eyes when they're born.
Yeah, what?
What
the drops is it silver iodine? What is it that they put in the babies when a baby's born? They put in their
They used to do that, because of infection and would lead to blindness and stuff like
That might have been the case.
Yeah, so there could have. So we learned things that could help avert something from happening too. Yeah.
Prevent blindness, 'cause it's a
Yeah.
easy thing to do.
For lack of oxygen too, or too much of it.
Right.
Which is what happened to Stevie Wonder.
So our son Paul. So our son Paul has Down syndrome, and that's a certain genetic thing that brings along other health issues commonly. But not every child with Down syndrome has every health issue, but there's a higher percent that will have, certain of them. So, just the fact that he was premature, that's one of the things that can come along. But he wasn't as developed as they thought. I think they maybe misestimated when his birth was. So he was like premature, so he needed extra oxygen. Not the huge level, like really premature, but he also needed the bilirubin lights, like his liver, right? So we called him Spaceman Spiff because he had these little like iPads it's like a little mask to keep his eyes protected from the extra lights to help produce, because of the lack of his development.
The bilirubin lights.
Yeah, the bilirubin lights.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, we laughed because when we had pictures of him, we called him Spaceman Spiff. Because it looked like he had these little fancy little eye patches or what, I don't know. Anyway, back to our gospel reading. Okay, so Jesus now starts to come in, and then, but this becomes before he actually does the healing, gives us some opportunity to say, I must do the works of God who sent me while it is day, night is coming. Meaning, there's going to come a point where, I think more like looking towards the cross and his betrayal, like where he will be not able to do some of this. But now he can. This is the right window. This is the time for him to do these special signs, as they're called. It's a miracle, but in John's gospel, it's called a sign. And because the sign is related to him receiving sight, it's showing us that Jesus is the light of the world. So it's showing us something also about just who Jesus is. So I am the light of the world. I think that's in the other, like Matthew's gospel. I know that we're told that we're the light of the world. I know that, but I think it's also that Jesus is the light. At any rate,
I think it has a nice segue to the next week's gospel about it. This was to show the glory of God.
To show the glory of God, because then the next story, John 11, where is the resurrection, or not technically, okay, not resurrection yet. That's a little different. But anyway, the restoring to life of Lazarus. But here, now we'll get to the healing action. Finally, sorry, we got there. We're still in just the first paragraph, folks. So he gets down in the mud, and so I like the idea that potentially there were, because I mean a lot of, what is it? Before we had our chemicals and microscopes, and I think a lot of cultures knew, like, this flower or this kind of soil carries minerals, or whatever, like there was a knowledge that had developed.
Adam was made out of mud.
And Adam was made out of mud, out of clay. So I think it could be a both and, actually, and perhaps even another meaning we could come up with. But I like the idea that he was incorporating a way of cure, a way of a known cure. Yes.
For
I
infections.
think the women were using wet packs in those days
Mm-hmm.
too.
Oh yeah, it could be like a poultice to pull out some impure,
Just for
yeah.
beauty,
Mm-hmm. Oh, and beauty, yeah. Well, that still happens, right?
Yeah.
Women can put certain clay on your face, and boy, your face is supposed to be so wonderful.
Make money to go have somebody do that for
That's
you.
right.
Your face simply do that.
I think I saw too, like going to the Red Sea and putting I don't know that. Yeah. So anyway, it's known you could use nature to hopefully do good things for yourself.
Your husband.
Yeah, the Dead Sea actually is supposed to have very high quality mud.
That's it. That's what I was, because I think I saw someone.
The Dead Sea has
I don't
medicinal
know.
qualities.
I know
Yeah,
Kylie got to go
there's a
there,
lot of salt.
who's been
Yes.
ordained and was from this church. Kylie got to go to there with a trip from her seminary, and I'm pretty I may not remember correctly, but I'm pretty sure they had some pictures of them doing this with the mud. So they got in on it. Why not? Okay,
Also,
but
at the time, spittle was considered to have medicinal value.
that's
And can you imagine spittle from God?
well, at least in that level. But in general, I wouldn't say otherwise that that's a good idea, except for what parent hasn't at some point going like, you got something on your face. So, however, within one's family, you got to figure you're pretty well around each other's germs all the time anyway. But seriously, I can't. It's hard for me because I'm a doctor's daughter to be like, yeah, go ahead, go around using your spit to mix up some medicine and at any rate. Okay, so it could be known, it could be useful, but I also think it's also an echo of Genesis 2, like Kay was saying. I think it's meant to take us into that realm of thought, how God created humanity was by literally shaping soil, clay, and then and in Genesis 2, God's very close, very hands-on. And I like this too, because sometimes Jesus just does, I call it the Genesis 1 style of healing, which is like speak and it is, right? You speak and it is. But the Genesis 2 perspective is God's right in there. God's real close. God's, and breathes on us, which, heaven forbid, COVID time, don't get people's,
Well, isn't
be
there
breathed
another time
on.
when Jesus spat on his hands and then?
I think there may be another in the other Gospels. I think there is another occasion where he gets that, like, again. But so sometimes and I don't know the why. Sometimes he just heals and he just says it and there it is. And then sometimes,
a deaf mute person, he licks his finger and sticks it in his ear or something.
So well, and if that person was, it's symbolic too, kind of like both the mouth and the ears.
This is very one-on-one.
Yeah. So it's very one-on-one. Maybe it's hands-on because, the man could hear. He follows Jesus' instructions. But again, touch, when you can't see, becomes like a very heightened part of your existence. So that Jesus touching him may have been a way to help the man be knowing he's being cared for, or receiving
because
something.
he was blind. That's
Yeah.
how he communicated.
Yeah, because he couldn't. That way he knows Jesus is doing something, I guess you could say that. But again, creation. Genesis 2, creation. I kind of like to imagine, I'm perhaps taking this a little too far, but I'm almost imagining just like God created the whole human, maybe Jesus creates him some new eyeballs. Like he gives him, like he's doing this and he's giving him new eyeballs, and then he has to go wash, the rest of the mud away. But, or again, it's just a nod towards God as the creator, and that this man is becoming like a new creation just by what Jesus is doing for him. So, and then here's another very important thing. So Jesus gives some instructions, right? It's not very much. Go wash in the pool of Siloam. That's not a long.
Well, that was kind of a healing pool too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a place that was associated with healing. So, so the man listens, though. That's really key, and we'll get back to that. We'll have to keep moving along now, so we can get back to that, because that's a very, very, very important thing.
Wasn't it like a hot spring or something like that?
Yeah, I think there was that. Just like other waters, just like they had
a little bit of a geyser
supposed to be
too,
good for you,
Wasn't it a little bit of a geyser too, maybe going on there?
It could be. Oh yeah, when it would move, it could move, and that would, yeah. Well, so he does it. He comes back, and then people start like interrogating him. I don't know that we have to go into a lot, but the point is they're having trouble. He's experienced this awesome thing, and they're more hung up about like almost disproving it than being like, that's awesome, that's amazing, that's celebrate with him. Instead, it's more like, are you sure? Is that really the guy? Anyway, it really seems to throw people, upset them in a way.
Wouldn't it today? I mean,
yeah.
If you had a blind neighbor and this
But back
thing
to
happened, you
but back to the thing about people not really noticing people with disability, I find it also very telling. Some people know it's him, at least they can remember him directly. But those are not. They're like, no, just someone who looks like him. Well, that means they didn't really ever like him. They didn't really look at him before. Yeah. They never really paid attention to him before.
So then they go to his parents.
Yeah.
So they were blind too.
They were blind too. Yes. See, seeing and being seen. And,
one last item in my study Bible is it says John emphasizes that the name of Siloam means sent.
Sent, yes.
Because Jesus has just announced he has been sent by God.
Ah, okay, back to some of Jesus' own words. I've been sent by God. That's right. Has sent me. Reminding us of that, taking us to that. Thank you. So that's what I mean. John's gospel, there's there's another connection. So they can't quite decide on what's the reality. So they're like, we got to go to the authorities. Let's take this man to the authorities. Now they go to the Pharisees. So that's the next paragraph. So that's 13 through 23, but it's the paragraph.
This one right here.
Yeah, are you able to read?
Right. Okay. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had formerly been blind. Now it was the Sabbath day when Jesus made the mud and opened his eyes. Then the Pharisees also began to ask him how he had received his sight. He said to them, he put mud on my eyes. Then I washed, and now I see. Pretty simple.
Right.
Some of the Pharisees said, this man is not from God, for he does not observe the Sabbath, because he did that on the Sabbath. But others said, how can a man who is a sinner perform such signs? And they were divided. So they said again to the blind man, what do you say about him? It was your eyes he opened. He said he is a prophet. The Jews did not believe that he had been blind and had received his sight until they called the parents of the man who had received his sight and asked them, is this your son, who you say was born blind? How then does he see? does he now see? His parents answered, "We know that this is our son, and that he was born blind, but we do not know how it is that now he sees, nor do we know who opened his eyes. Ask him, he is of age. He
Thank
will
you.
speak
Well,
for."
Okay, yeah, he will speak for himself. Yeah. So we're going to pause there because, so one of the context of the Gospel of John, and it is important to be aware of, especially in a section like this, by the time the Gospel of John is written, which is later in the first century, they were actually starting to kick out anyone who was Jewish who had come to really believe in Jesus as the Messiah. They really were starting to be. Initially, they weren't kicked out. It didn't happen like right away, So this reference is probably technically more not at that era yet because that was just too soon. But it did happen. It was a reality. And so that's why it represents the parents being like very we don't want to get kicked out. So he can speak for himself, they're going to just which on the other hand, though, I actually like that because sometimes there's a perspective of a person has a disability and someone doesn't talk to them directly. And they talk to the person there and it's like, this person can speak for themselves. They're very capable,
The parents may not have been there.
Well, they weren't initially at the
when it was.
Yeah, when it all happened. So, and they didn't
witness.
No, they didn't actually witness it either. So they're just being good. They're just telling what they know and is true. So
well, even today, you go to the parents for the kids,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but he's an adult. He's not like a kid. So it's like so I think basically, though, the point is, he could speak for himself, and that is important, and that is meaningful. And let's see, I'm just trying to remember where we paused.
24.
Okay, so we were picking up at 24.
So for the second time, they called the man who had been blind, and they said to him, "Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner." He answered, "I do not know whether he is a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." They said to him, "What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I have told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?" Then they reviled him, saying, "You are his disciple, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from." The man answered, "Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." They answered him, "You were born entirely in sin, and you are trying to teach us?" And they drove him out.
All right, I have to admit, I even got lost a little bit myself because it's somewhere in here. Didn't the man say something? They asked him, "Who is Jesus?" And he says he's a prophet.
Yeah, that was
Okay, sorry. We were. There were so many things we were trying to touch on.
Barb read that.
Barb had that part. Okay, so that's another important thing. Is he does make that profession, and that's that's another level of. First, he's just the man named Jesus, healed me. Now he had said he's a prophet. And now we get to another layer, another.
That puts him in the league with Moses. Then.
And so now we've stepped up to Moses level. That's pretty big time. And then at the end, he's from God too, which is another way of.
And then he says to them, "Are you asking me this because do you want to follow?"
I know. So there's a part of me. The more this man goes forward, I am so impressed.
Yeah, and he's getting fed up with them. I told you,
Yeah, but he's not cowed down. He's not. He doesn't let them, tell him what to think. He doesn't. He knows what he knows, and he won't back down, which I really think is commendable here.
Well, it's also remarkable since he was born blind. his
Yeah.
education was likely very limited.
Would have been, yeah. So maybe hopefully his parents read scripture to him, or did, like at least to help share things with him and everything.
His parents are probably also illiterate.
Well, that's true. They would have, that's true. Most likely, that's
What
true.
did you say?
The parents would not so likely have been able to read. I mean, there wasn't that many that would have been
He
educated
was
on them.
uneducated, but so was everybody else.
So yeah, kind of like where everybody was. But they would go to synagogue and then they would hear teaching. So at least there is that.
The fact that
That
he was
the man
stand
could
up
have
to
done.
Yeah, he could
As
do
a
that.
person who has lived his life not being seen, he probably, this is an assumption I'm making, he probably wasn't real outgoing, and he probably just lived his life
Mm-hmm.
privately. And now not only can he see, but he's
He's getting kind
forecast. I mean,
He's speaking out.
Sticking up for what happened and
And
saying
he's
this
kind
is
of
somebody
handed up to here with
He's-
these guys.
his person.
He might be getting a little annoyed. How many times are you going to ask me this?
I've been ignored my whole life.
Yeah.
Now you're not believing what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of
Okay.
he's not a diplomat.
I think he got something from Christ touching him.
Mm-hmm.
Just that fact.
Just that
Because
a
can
connection.
you imagine being
Yeah.
touched by Christ?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course,
Like that
we know
might have
a lot
helped
more
in
about
that
him now, but
Commitment and boldness, perhaps. It
yeah,
made
just the feel of
him,
touching him.
yeah, given him a strength that was more than he felt before, or something. Could be.
You don't have to raise your hand.
Oh, that's sorry.
I had a question.
Yeah.
I've heard of this thing. This is like really famous, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was blind and then I could see. Kind of thing.
Yeah, it kind of becomes a key verse in Amazing Grace.
I've heard of it. I've heard of it. It sounded so familiar.
Yeah.
Is that where that's from?
Yeah.
Oh, Amazing Grace. That I'm blind and then I could see.
Yep.
Comes from this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a line in Amazing, the hymn
A
that is
lot
like,
of hymns are based on scripture passages.
yeah.
No, I know, but,
But-
what I'm
but
saying
this
is,
is-
like, this one. I remember. I'm not.
This one
expert.
plays into
I
Amazing
remember
Grace.
it, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And the story of
We
Amazing.
sang that on Sunday.
Yeah, we did sing it, so it was fresh
That's
in
like
your
a
head.
super popular hymn.
Yes.
you know?
It is probably one of the
If you
most.
look at the bottom of the
known.
hymnals, they always, on the right-hand side, fine print, they say where the reference is from.
It can sometimes give us the biblical connection, right? The
Yeah.
Bible passage.
Not all the hymns are, but
Yeah.
I think most of them.
But this one definitely is, and also though it's plays back to that spiritual blindness versus because the one who wrote it, and I forgot his name.
Well,
Anyway, he was a ship captain. The
Oh, you're
story
talking about this
of
Amazing
the
Grace?
hymn, yeah,
He wasn't just a ship captain. I'm
Yeah.
very familiar with that.
yeah,
He was
and
a
now
slave
he was a
trader.
slave trader.
And the idea was
Yeah.
that through his
and then
coming
he,
to Christianity,
He
decided
totally,
that
yeah.
maybe not
he
that was
became
not
very
good.
active,
Yeah.
It was a very abolitionist oriented
Right.
thing.
So it was a spiritual blindness on his part initially
Right.
Actually,
to be like thinking the slave trade was okay, but then with Christ.
But he
and-
wasn't just thinking it was
but-
okay; he was actually doing
Oh
it.
yeah,
because
not
his
just
ship
he was
bringing
literally
slaves.
he was doing it.
It
You're
wasn't
right.
like
yeah.
I'm a Trump, supporter. He was like right
yeah,
there.
He was right
You know what I'm
there.
saying?
Yeah. Well, so
Actually, the slavery was
We-
abandoned in England before we did it.
So
Yes.
it's actually another layer, I think, is this person who's become, you can see, was blind and now can see,
mhm.
is basically saying that the Pharisees are blind.
Yes.
yes.
And can't see.
Yes. No, and that comes in, and this is okay. So we're going to get to the passage portion that we did not hear this weekend. So that's the next few verses, and then that's that I think takes us to the end of chapter. So you need to turn the page. Yeah, where the spiritual blindness is the title of it. So yeah, Jeff, could you read the one that says spiritual blindness? That little paragraph there.
Jesus heard that they had driven him out. And when he found out, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered, "And who is he, sir? Tell me, so that I may believe in him." Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he. He said, 'Lord, I believe and I worship him.' Jesus said, 'I came into the world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and for those who do see may become blind.' Some of the Pharisees who were with him heard this, and they said to him, "Surely we are not blind, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would not have sinned. But now that you say, 'We see,' your sin remains."
Mm-hmm. So this is the next part of this, but this is both, like I say, commentary on the spiritual blindness that's happening with some of the Jewish leaders. I always like to say some of the Jewish leaders because sometimes, unfortunately, like especially the Gospel of John, it'll say the Jews or something, and it's like, no, it was certain leaders who had that perspective. It's not like the entire population, but there were some people who felt threatened to their own authority, to their own status in the community, and probably, and we'll see this when we get to the story with Lazarus, probably worried that if things got stirred up too much, then the Romans would maybe try to squash, and Romans were known to do that really well. So they may have been like, we need to not rock the boat.
Wasn't there an
not,
incident where the Romans actually invaded the temple and
that does happen later. That's
a bunch of worshipers there.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about the
It
worshipers.
happened before John was written.
Yeah, it did happen before
happened
John was
before
written.
this,
Yeah. Wasn't that the Antiochus Epiphanes though? Or maybe it was the Romans too. It had happened before, basically. Yeah. Anyway, so by the time we get to the Lazarus story, it becomes even more clear that some of the leaders are afraid that the Romans will push back and make things, much harder on the Jewish people. So that's why they're like, we better take care of Jesus before things get out of hand. And the Romans start to step in, which ironically they work with the Romans, but that's later. That's later.
Well, Pilate was trying to kind of keep the peace by letting the Jews govern as much as they
Well,
could.
that was a general way they tried to.
As long as they
Mm-hmm.
retained
As long as they would
rights.
respect the Romans being in control, they didn't worry too much usually how people worshipped. But if it was starting to make people question Rome's authority, then they were going to be like, nope, now we're going to get involved. But I want to get back to the man being sought out. I think that's, again, a super key part of this whole saga is so the man has been pushed away from the community. Jesus goes and looks for him. And we won't have time to get into it, but I printed along with this other page, I put the beginning, several verses from chapter 10, and it's titled The Good Shepherd, Jesus the Good Shepherd. And just a kind of a couple things something I highlighted. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. And then there was another part I thought I had highlighted, but I lay down my life for my sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also. They will listen to my voice. So, he calls them his sheep, listen to, they do not, that's another part up earlier. The sheep do not know the voice of strangers. So the sheep know the shepherd's voice. And the man starts out only hearing Jesus' voice. That's how the whole thing starts. And he listens. So he hears, he listens, and that's, again, the sheep hear his voice, hear my voice. And so he's already beginning to follow the shepherd. But now he's been, again, shunned by his own community, and Jesus finds him. And this isn't so much in the John's gospel, but we also have, like in Luke's gospel, the lost sheep, and there's 100 and the one gets lost and the shepherd goes to look for the one lost sheep. So again, it ties into that Jesus good shepherd imagery. And then he finds him and says, do you believe in the Son of Man? And again, think about this. I know people who have, not vision impairment, their hearing, is usually a bigger part of their awareness. But he only heard Jesus say about 5 words initially. So I don't think that he would literally at this point recognize Jesus' voice. I don't know. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I just don't know that it would be quite likely because he hadn't heard Jesus talk much, So he's like, well, who is this? Who is he so I can believe in him? And I love it because it's another, like, just like the Samaritan woman story, like, we know the Messiah is coming, and when he comes, he will reveal all things to us. And then, and it's like, well, Jesus is like, well, you're talking to him. And then here he is like, well, you're talking to him. So
a blind person would recognize a voice.
Yeah, I think
it's
it's
a
more,
heightened sense.
it would be more, he would have a much higher degree of likelihood of it. I would agree with that. But until he can actually put it all together to know that this is truly the one, the man he's talking to truly is actually the one who gave him his sight back. And again, not just his sight, but I would say transformed his life, because he becomes a real disciple. He really, this whole thing about so one thing about the adversarial conversations he has, sometimes, going through a debate can help clarify your understanding. And in his case, now in a good debate, you should be willing to hear what the others have to say. I mean, I just want to, remember that. But it does ultimately clarify his understanding of who Jesus is.
The aha moment.
Yeah, like it puts it together more and more. Like I remember, because I can go back before the wall came down in Berlin, so I can remember before when communism was still much more, prevalent through those regions, and Lutherans. There's my awareness, because I learned this back then. Lutherans who were in like East Germany, if you chose to get confirmed, I mean, confirmation is, you're saying, I know I'm baptized, I know Jesus is my Savior. Anyway, if you chose to participate and be, confirmed as a young person, like, usually 13, 14 years old, you had a fair chance that you could reduce your opportunities going forward. You could reduce your chance of going to university. I mean, there were real, true repercussions if you professed Christ.
The social level.
Yeah.
Your kids couldn't go to good schools.
Right. So anyway, so Tom.
I'm not like an expert in history either. I thought you're talking about East Germany, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they it was illegal, wasn't it, to be religious?
Well, okay, pure communism was atheist.
No, what I'm saying is the government was all the atheists, and they were really against religion. And I thought.
Yeah, but they didn't like disallow it.
No,
it wasn't to that level.
I'm not German about
Yeah, but so I mean, but it was still like, if you wanted to really get ahead, you should join the Communist Party. Like, everybody didn't have to be in the Communist Party.
Well, you mean go to jail?
You could go to a church.
Well,
you could go to church.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there were still pastors. There were still churches.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
My custodian, his family was from East Germany, and he and his wife, actually they snuck past the border with 2 suitcases each, and with everything they could. That was all they could. Anything they could carry from him. And they came here. Well, anyway, his daughter was married and had a child, and when they had a family gathering here, she had to get special permission to come, and it was like a visa. She had 2 weeks she could spend here with them, and they would not. And this is for all parents. They would not let the children go with them.
Oh, so by having kept her children behind, that was kind of like a guarantee, like that she'll come back.
Kids are there, And of course, when the Iron Curtain was down, it was okay. But I mean, he and his wife, they could go and visit with them.
There.
So when
but
did this
not
happen?
other places,
When was this?
Before Berlin Wall.
This was
Early
in the
80s.
70s, late 70s.
Yeah.
70s. It's true.
Well, okay, I will take us back from our nice diversion off to the East Germany thing, but
it was like the 20th
related to
anniversary.
back to the Bible passage.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
I would assume that blind person who now could see was a marked man.
Oh yeah, he would have
Because
been.
he would have been the symbol.
It was like they wanted to do away with Lazarus too later.
Yeah.
They're like, wait, he knows too much. He's too much of a professor. I mean, he can go around telling what Jesus can do.
He's an example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would surmise that he doesn't last too much longer.
Well, the thing is, I think ultimately, the way I take this story is, he does become a disciple. because Jesus goes and seeks him out, sheep of his own fold.
How
right?
long is he a disciple?
Well, I don't know how long he literally
I just
travels
can't
with
see-
Jesus. But
he had a lot of disciples that didn't follow him all the time.
yeah,
They went back and forth because they had
right.
businesses or
They still had
family
connections. Yeah,
responsibilities and that kind of thing.
Well,
Even the 12, I think, did that.
I think what I hope we can also hear is, again, Jesus is the good shepherd. He does look for us. We are his sheep. We hear his voice. Hopefully we are listeners, just like this man was, like good listeners, and following what Jesus says. But also, sometimes we're the ones who have the blindness. Sometimes we're the ones who are convinced, like, well, God wouldn't act that way. God wouldn't do that. Now, I'm not saying, sometimes I'm like, yeah, there's some people things people say God would do, and I'm like, no, God would not do that. I would disagree on certain things. But maybe I'm the one who's being a little too narrow, like God's done something in someone's life, and I'm kind of like, yeah, sure. I might do that sometimes. And so I have to, as much as I want to associate to the man who was healed in the story, I have to be willing to admit when I've also held up some blindness and say, okay, please, Lord, heal me from that spiritual blindness and transform my life. But yeah.
I'm not trying to interrupt in any way. Are you talking about, you're talking about, I'm hearing from you, blind spot. No?
Maybe blind spot, but again, it's holding or limiting an understanding of God's activity in the world.
Okay.
And so, so maybe I need to be
blind to what God's doing in our life.
Yeah. Blind. Yeah, that's another way of saying it too. Maybe God's at work in our life, and we're being blind to it.
Well, what does that mean, God's working?
Who, me?
What does that even mean?
Well, like God might be trying to lead us into, I don't know, more grace, more mercy, or I don't know, doing something like a ministry or a mission that God would have us do.
If that's true, how do you explain free will?
Well, no, we do have free will. We ultimately do. We were talking about that earlier.
You can either follow him or not.
But maybe my blindness is a purposeful blindness. Like I'm ignoring what God may be putting in front of me, and I'm like, I'm not looking at it.
Like Jonah.
You have free will, right? But God wants you to do the right thing.
Well,
Well, like Jonah. I mean,
he tried to run the other way.
He kept running the other way, and God kept bringing him back.
Yes. Well, and I do have friends who ultimately come in ministry, and they'll have part of their own journey and story as well. Yeah, God really was speaking to me, but I was like, nope.
Are you saying, can I interrupt?
Yeah.
That they had a calling.
They did have a calling.
And they didn't know that they had a calling?
No, they knew actually.
Oh, in other words, the calling was the sign from God.
Yeah, they
God
were.
was telling them, and they heard small, still voice.
Well, yes, but the point was they heard it, but they were still saying, And eventually, somehow, it was like, you're right, God, okay. So,
Tom, in my life, there's little whispers.
Right.
And sometimes I'm not paying
Mm-hmm.
attention to the little whispers.
Small, still voice.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's part of your denomination.
Oh, yes, yeah, no, I like
Part of
still
your
small
denomination?
voice, yeah.
You guys do
Didn't
that?
we have a reading about Ananias in Acts some time ago? Not that long ago.
Yeah.
But that was the case too, and God said to him, or Jesus came to him and said, "Go and Saul's in trouble. I mean,
Yeah.
Talk to Saul." And he kept.
And Ananias is like, really? You really want me to talk to the guy that was trying to arrest all the Christians? You really want me to go there?
He even says to Jesus, "Do you know who this guy is?"
Yeah, and then he goes. But let's wrap up with our Lord's Prayer, and then thank you. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And have a very blessed week.
Keep this conversation.